To what degree do you think print media impacts people's everyday opinions?
Every, every, I mean, still has a big influence. I mean, the circulation of print has sort of declined over the years, but I mean, it's still something that plenty of people impacts a lot of people. You've still got headlines in newspapers. You've still got people who buy papers, and the print media as a brand speaks louder than quite a lot of blogs because there's still the sort of the historical significance behind it, and you know that if there's something in print, then it's gone through lots of different channels in terms of sub-editing and the thought process behind making a print title is a lot more sophisticated than, say, something that someone's just done online. So in that way, it does still wield a lot of influence.
If all newspapers and all news were to be impartial, do you think everyday people could make more informed decisions, or do you think that we rely a lot on the opinions of other people to make our own?
Well, you can still promote those. I mean, the answer to the question is yes, but we do rely on other people's opinions to make their own. But we also it has to be done in a way that is quite clear, that it's done in an impartial way. So you can do a story by expressing someone's opinion, but making that quite clear that is an opinion and that there's the other side to it. So it provides some balance to that story. So totally. I mean, it would help a heck of a lot were things more impartial. Because then I think you would then when you do read you read an opinion in that impartial publication, in an impartial presentation, it would give more credence to that because you know it's not being done to further an agenda. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think could actually be done to encourage impartiality in print media?
That's a tough one. I guess it's just the responsibility of everyone who works in it to try and make sure that what they're producing is not being biased in any way. And what I guess would help is if someone someone did that and showed that you could actually that readers weren't turned off by it, that you got more readers as a result of that. But the challenge with that is that the print publications, it's a managed decline, so it's not a case of no one's making readers, everyone's just losing them. And what we're trying to do is lose, in the print industries, is lose them by a smaller amount. So success is considered maybe 5 or 6% loss of readers year on year, which makes it quite difficult to kind of to try and change how you're doing things, because even if you do, you still end up losing readers. So ultimately, I think money talks and circulation talks. And if there was a way that it could be proved that being impartial increased the readership, then people would do it. But the industry's not in a place that anything is happening in that regard, really.
Do you think that journalists have a responsibility to call out partiality or bias in print media?
They do, and I think mostly they do, because I mean, if you look at a lot of stories in titles that you often think of as being impartial, often you think of that have a reputation of being angled towards a certain point of view. Quite often, the stories are written in a way that is impartial, but you've got headlines that are different. You've got stand first that are different. You've got quite often like the front page of a story, the front page of a newspaper, which sets the tone for a publication, is often not written by a journalist. The journalists are the ones out there doing stories. The front pages, the headlines, are being written by people in the office who aren't out actually filing copy, but they're looking at what the journalists are writing on a whole, and just thinking, okay, what's gonna be the strongest thing to sort of further our agenda, or the most hard hitting approach to take. So I think in general, most journalists do have that, but it's just the way things are presented in print.
Why do some newspapers jump to slandering political parties rather than showing support to the parties that they favour?
Because it's often the case of the least worst. So if you look at the two major parties, the Conservatives and Labour, is that they've both got but both you've got Conservative followers and Labour followers who I'm pretty sure don't like their leader, and I think it's it seems to be the case in elections and in politics recently, is that it's been the least worst option is what you would choose. And if you can paint the opposition as being worse than you're bad, then you're still going to get support. So if the Conservative paper is demonising Jeremy Corbyn more than they're criticising Boris Johnson, then the negative Corbyn angle is probably going to trump the kind of the lukewarm attitude to Boris Johnson, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's just unfortunate we're in a position where there aren't many politicians who at the top end who people can look upon and think, right, he's a good politician. Because often now it's just a case of trying to make the worst one as bad as you possibly can to negate the weaknesses of the one you want to, the one in your camp.
I've got a statement here by Ian Burrow, who published an article for the newspaper, and I'm just wondering how much you agree or disagree with this statement. So he said Brexit divisions and angry social media discourse encourage tribal journalism where blind loyalty takes priority over facts.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you've got anything that's a big divide, so Brexit is in or out, isn't it? And then if you're in a position where you're nailing your colours to one mast, then that sets the tones for the type of stories you're going to be looking for, isn't it? And when it comes to Brexit, it's such a complicated thing that you can extract certain elements of it and totally disregard the others. Doesn't always make it. I mean, just going back to the quote, doesn't always make it that you're. I mean, you could use certain. You can angle it that you can pick out the odd fact or opinion that someone makes, and disregard the mountains of other evidence in the other on the other way. I mean, it's sort of you can compare it to, say, global warming and climate change, and you've got a massive pool of scientists who are for it, and a smaller pool who think that it doesn't exist. And you probably can find someone in the Brexit debate to say something that goes against what the majority think, just as you can with the climate change. You can find someone who professes to be sort of an expert, but the majority, if the majority doesn't suit your angle, you will put them to the side. So it's quite a tough one when I think about it, because what is a fact is different depending on who's saying it, isn't it? And with a lot of these things, they're predictions. So with climate change and global warming, it's predicting what's happening in the future, and with Brexit, it's predicting what's going to happen. So that leaves a lot of leeway to come up with things that are sort of minority, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that biased media and journalism can inspire hatred or bigotry?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're you're portraying something as if you're portraying a massive problem, when if you're going to take a more balanced view, that problem is a lot less. Then yeah, you are getting people very wild up. I mean, you can just use that in any type of instance. I mean, if you're a boxing trainer, you will and you want your chap to beat the other chap, you won't say, look, it's a 50-50 task, he's good, you're good, let's see what you can do. You'll say, no, you can beat him. He's got this weakness, that weakness, the other weakness. You are better than him. You are going to be as strong as you can and defeat him, because he's nothing compared to you. And that's sort of the same, I guess, when it comes to the bias. You could take a balanced view, and then you would create a calmer environment. But if you're gonna hammer down one particular point of view, then that's the one that becomes a dominant one. And if that is sort of an aggressive tone, it can create aggression.
Do you think Brexit would be as captivating as it has been if it wasn't for biased print media?
No, it probably wouldn't. It probably wouldn't, because we've had 3.5 years of it, and the whole biased element of it. This probably goes down to the reason why it's kind of biased. The strong opinions, the strong emotions towards it, the being on one camp. That's probably what the industry is thinking is the best way to get people interested in what is, it's probably going to end up something that's very bland and very dull. It might just be an administrative task in the end, just ticking a box saying we're out of the EU, and things might end up very similar to what they are already. And but you can't keep a story going for 3.5 years with that eventuality. You keep that story going by talking of turmoil in the streets and what such a disaster it could be in one corner, and then the other corner you could talk about people who are being traitors to the cause and being really enemies of democracy. So those really strong angles in both corners. That's what the industry, I think, is hoping that's keeping people interested and keeping people buying the papers.